Hey everyone, welcome to today's webinar. I'm super excited to be here with you all and with our special guests, Cory and Matthew, to talk about today how there really is no such thing as an industry-wide HPD. There's actually something better. I'm Terry Swack, and I'm the founder and CEO of Sustainable Minds, and I appreciate everybody taking time out of their busy day to join us. So we love what NRMCA is doing. Their mission actually includes talking about helping their members prosper through environmental excellence. And so true to their mission, they have a range of sustainability certifications that they've developed for the concrete industry, and producing these example product HPDs is another piece of their sustainability certification strategy to help their members prosper through environmental and operational excellence. So now the industry can request from concrete producers not only product-specific mix EPDs, but now product-specific HPDs as well, enabling you to get credit contributions to the green building rating systems through all the concrete products that you specify on your projects. So the agenda for today is pretty straightforward. For those of you who are new to Sustainable Minds, I'll do a quick introduction to Sustainable Minds and the Transparency Catalog, and we'll show you the new listing in the Transparency Catalog for NRMCA, where you'll be able to come and find the entry points into all of the sustainability content we'll be talking about today on the NRMC website. Then I'll turn it over to Matthew. He'll start by laying out what they've done in their industry-wide EPD program and the benchmark report that they've created and how to use those. And then he'll correlate that work and how that applied to creating the HPDs. Cory will explain to us how the HPDC worked with NRMCA and are also working with other trade organizations to create these example product-specific HPDs for their organization. And he's going to lay it out step by step, not only how they created them, but then how each producer can go ahead and get started creating their own product-specific HPDs. Now, during the webinar, if you have questions, please put them in the chat, in the questions panel, and we'll be answering those as we go along, or we'll take them at the end, or we'll follow up and make sure you get answers to those questions. The webinar is being recorded. You will receive a recording automatically. You don't have to request it. Although if you want a copy of the deck, you'll need to let us know you want that. So you'll be able to reply to the email you get with the recording. And there's a couple questions at the end of the webinar that you wouldn't mind answering when you leave. That would be awesome too. And with that, let's just dig in. So Sustainable Minds is the only end-to-end product transparency solutions provider in the market today. So what does that mean? We are a program operator. We develop PCRs, which are a standard for product categories. We are an EPD publisher. We also deliver LCA and material ingredient technical services, carbon accounting, and we have reporting tools that take the transparency information that manufacturers create and deliver them in easy to understand digital and cloud solutions to make all that content accessible to people who need it to make decisions, make better products, build better buildings. And what's unique about our approach is that product transparency is really a component of product marketing because environmental performance and material health are performance attributes that now manufacturers can use to create preference and value for their products and brand. And so by taking the approach of having excellent and easy to use and understand technical services, because creating PCRs is people getting together to create a standard for something they generally don't understand, so that needs to be understandable. Our EPDs, we call them transparency reports, allow manufacturers to integrate their stories about what they're actually doing to improve the results And that's nested with the EPD results. And the transparency catalog is where all of that information lives then to make it possible for architects, engineers, contractors, and owners to find the manufacturers investing in one or both types of product transparency, either EPDs or material ingredient disclosures, in every master format section to be able to make comparative decisions and do business with the brands they trust who are actually making higher performing products. So what is product transparency really all about? It really, again, I'm repeating myself, but it is all about performance. And environmental performance is now part of the definition of high performance, which is how the industry defines itself. We like to point out, and Matthew and Cory will also point this out, that the primary intent for manufacturers to do LCAs and material assessments is to get insight into the environmental performance and human health impacts of their products so they can actually make better products. Take that information back into product development and manufacturing, make better products. It's optional to be transparent and disclose it publicly. So for those manufacturers who really do understand the environmental performance and material health and are making changes or taking strides, they're excited about creating transparency documentation and getting it out there. And NRMCA has really invested and continues to invest not only in the creation of these transparency reporting tools, but literally in the ability for people to compare. And you'll see that's what the benchmarking report is about. And it's quite interesting and smart how the HPDs, the example products, have been created at each of those strength category benchmarks. And at the end of the day, brands that understand these two new performance attributes and are actually taking action on being transparent and making improvements are the brands that are going to win business and win in the marketplace. So we'd like to tell you about the latest innovation here at the Transparency Catalog, which is the addition of the new Project Builder and Library functionality. We announced it last May, and it's been in beta. Now it's in limited release. A lot of great organizations are using it now because it is the only collaborative workflow tool for sourcing high performance materials that meet carbon impact and human health goals. So we're operationalizing product selection and closing the gaps in workflow and data and tools that exist today between design, specification, planning, and procurement to revolutionize the end-to-end process for teams. So the way that we're doing that is by integrating seamlessly a pretty sophisticated, but also really easy to use workflow tool with this highly structured data set that is the Transparency Catalog. So what's in the Transparency Catalog today? It's over 2,000 manufacturers and industry organizations across 28 master format divisions, over 1,300 sections. And it includes every EPD from all North American program operators. It's all organized by product specific, industry average, optimized. And we have APIs from all of the leading material ingredient disclosure programs. And again, everything is organized by master format so that you can find things by master format section, rating system credit, disclosure type, as well as key performance attributes like embodied carbon, like different results from the different material ingredient disclosure programs. And now with Project Builder and Library, we're enabling organizations to build their own internal favorite products libraries, their own projects, project types of every different kind of project that gets built, and everything is collaborative. Anyone inside the organization who wants to be involved in a project can be collaborating on that project. People from outside the organization can be invited to collaborate on that project. And the goal is ultimately to create knowledge, preserve that knowledge, and reuse that knowledge over and over again on projects that get done over and over again and to reward, again, the brands and the products that meet the performance criteria that you're designing and building to. So it's really the natural evolution of the transparency catalog. We've been designing it over the last 7 years. We've met with hundreds of building professionals and manufacturers to really understand what those challenges are that create those gaps in tools and workflows. And it turns out that enabling people to collaboratively build product libraries and projects and templates and collections break down those barriers and create an end-to-end collaborative environment and workflow process. We're excited to actually confirm for ourselves even that we've got incredible traction in the marketplace because, and I'm just going to sum it up, the transparency catalog is so easy to use that we were shocked to see that practically every one of the top 5 green companies by sector, as identified by ENR, uses the transparency catalog. And if you look at just their sheer lists, 75% of the top 50 in each list use the transparency catalog. And if you get it down to the individual level, it's thousands and thousands of companies and people at every level in the organization, from entry level to C-suite, who are involved in selecting, specifying, and procuring products for high performance materials, which again is a testament to how easy it is to use. It's also a testament to how people really are looking for higher performing materials, and giving people the ability to make selections based on understanding performance criteria in the process of them doing the work, not extra and outside, but integrated into the functionality, is really key for people being able to adopt that way of working and reducing the barriers to entry. And that's why I'm so excited to welcome NRMCA to the transparency catalog. Go to their listing and you're going to find everything in one page that connects you to the NRMCA website, where their prodigious amount of content lives. So what you're going to find here in the product table, this is their industry average EPD, displaying the sections in the EPD by strength category. So if you click these links, it's going to open the PDF to that page in the industry-wide EPD, so you can look at the results for that strength category. You can also download the whole EPD there. You can link here to go to NRMCA's entire EPD database, their product-specific database of members. This link here is going to take you to the benchmark report, which Matthew is going to talk about today, which is super interesting. And then right down here is the link to the new example HPDs. When you get to that page, you'll see they've organized all the example HPDs by strength category. So you can go look at them. People can get started working on them. And I'm going to tell you, I'm passing it over to Matthew to tell you about how to do all that. And Matthew, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Terry. Thanks for the introduction and everything. For everyone, my name is Matthew Lemay. I'm the Manager of Codes and Sustainability Programs at NRMCA, or the National Ready Mix Concrete Association, the trade association for concrete. So I'm going to start out with a little piece of agenda. There we go. The first topic I'm going to cover is really just sustainability and transparency as goals for the concrete industry. Then I'm going to cover the basics of what an EPD is, introduce our industry-wide EPD. From there, I'm going to pass it on to Cory, Cory White from HPDC, who's going to cover the same kind of material for HPDs. What is an HPD and what is HPDC doing for HPDs? I'm going to then briefly come back, discuss our example product HPDs, and then wrap it up with how both types of document can be used in green building programs. There we go. So here, what I want to emphasize is transparency. Transparency is becoming, as Terry said, an increasingly important demand on building materials and on our industry as a whole, because our customers want to know what they're buying and what they're putting in their buildings. This I want to point out, I like to open with this image because on the left you see the highest resolution image available anywhere on Earth of the planet Pluto, right there. About 20 years later, this is what we have on the right. And I like to make this analogy to what we know about our materials and about our industry. As technology improves, we're able to not only build new things, but also to measure new things and gain new insights into our materials. So in the past, we didn't have such things as EPDs and HPDs in order to tell us what are our impacts on the environment, what are our impacts on human health, and now we do. And that's key because if we're being asked to improve both of those, we need to know where we stand first, right? To find where we're doing well, where we're doing poorly, etc. So this is really why there's such an emphasis on transparency, and that's what these documents do, is they provide transparency to customers and users, etc. So what is an EPD? It stands for Environmental Product Declaration. EPDs are third-party verified and registered documents which communicate environmental impacts. They can look a few different ways. You can see some examples here on this page. They communicate a number of environmental impacts, which you can see listed on that left side. But the most significant in the market today for concrete and most building materials is GWP, or global warming potential. What this measures is essentially, put simply, it is embodied carbon emissions. What it's measuring are kilograms of carbon dioxide emitted per unit. And for us, that's per cubic yard of concrete. So this value represents how many kilograms of CO2 were emitted into the atmosphere in the process of manufacturing 1 yard of concrete. Now, the beautiful thing about an EPD is it allows this kind of disclosure and this transparency while protecting proprietary information, such as the quantities and the mix design and the specific sources of products and which suppliers they come from. That's key because, you know, as concrete producers, that's our bread and butter, right? Those are our trade secrets. And so the verification process on an EPD, which I'm about to explain in another slide, is what allows us to be sure that our impacts are accurate without having to disclose all of our inputs, right? Which is what makes them usable in the market for us as public documents. So briefly, before I continue, I want to address what embodied carbon specifically means. If you look at this graphic, which I believe comes from the UN, it's estimated around 2017, so these numbers may have changed. Embodied carbon represents about 11% of global emissions versus operational carbon, which represents about 28% of global emissions. Embodied carbon refers to everything, all of the carbon emissions that come from extracting natural resources, manufacturing them into materials, transporting them both to the manufacturing site and to the construction site, right? And those are called embodied because they are already emitted when you put building material into a building, onto a site. Operational carbon is everything that comes after, keeping the lights on, running the AC, etc., for the entire lifespan of the building. One interesting thing about this is that there's greater pressure today on embodied carbon, and the reason is that all of those emissions happen now. Operational emissions happen in the future, which means that they can bank on things like improvements to the energy grid and more renewables to reduce the emissions of running a building over time. We don't have that luxury in embodied carbon, and I think that's why the market has shifted toward this heavy focus on embodied carbon for building materials. And so this embodied carbon, this is what is quantified by an EPD. It's the most important environmental impact quantified by an EPD. To overview how EPDs are created, it's a multi-party affair that usually involves at least three different parties. First, the manufacturer. the manufacturer is going to have to supply a few categories of data to this EPD. And where you're going to get those is mostly from internal documentation that you already have. It's a matter of organizing it and finding the right ones. So first, what we need is material supplier data. If you're a concrete producer, that means your sources for all of your key materials: cement, aggregates, admixtures, etc. 2, the transportation distances from those sources to your plant site. And 3, your plant operations data, which can be gathered from, which refers to your energy consumption, water consumption, on-site fuel, etc. And that can be gathered from bills and meters. You're going to take all of that information and input it into an LCA or EPD calculator. These are also referred to as generators. The LCA here refers to life cycle assessment. Performing a life cycle assessment is part of the process of creating an EPD, but EPD is the final documentation you'll be using toward your customers, just to make that clarification. There are several on the market today, and I want to point out the first 2 on there: Climate Earth and WAP Sustainability. In the ready mix space, they have what are called EPD generators, or instant EPD generators. What that means is this: in the past, EPDs were very laborious and time-consuming to create. Each one corresponds to a different product. And for concrete, each mix design is a different product, which means that when you needed to produce an EPD for a mix design, you had to go through this process for all the materials in that mix design. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and then you need another mix, you have to go through that again, right? Now what we're able to do is take into account all of the material suppliers that a plant uses and have all of that evaluated and verified, which is the next step in the process. And those instant EPD generators, that Climate Earth and WAP there, what that means is you will now be able to create new mix designs using, those same material suppliers in different proportions and receive an instantly verified EPD from those generators. So those are the ones that we highly recommend and that we refer users to in our EPD program. Once that is done and all of those are calculated, it'll be verified by a program operator. This is NRMCA's role in the process. We're not the only program operator. There's also ASTM is a major one for concrete. That verification process takes a couple of weeks. We work with a verifier to ensure that it's all up to the standards for EPDs and that all of the math is correct, all the calculations are correct. And then when it is, it'll receive that NRMCA certified EPD stamp and will be published on our website. So each program operator maintains a database of published EPDs, and ours is at nrmca.org/EPD. Interestingly, if you're working with one of those generators and you create a new EPD, it will be instantly pushed to nrmca.org/EPD and appear in a directory dedicated to each company. So just a quick idea, to give a quick idea of the scope of our program. It's grown momentously in the past couple of years. I can't count the number of specific mix-specific EPDs because it's changing every day, right, being published through those generators. So I counted the number of plants and the number of manufacturers that we have published EPDs for year over year. And you can see that 2023 is the year that it really happened. And I see no reason why that trend is going to slow down because these are becoming increasingly more in demand from both the private and public sector. So moving on from that, those are product-specific EPDs, and those are kind of the basic or typical form of EPD. There's also something called an industry-wide EPD. There's only one, and NRMCA is the publisher for this. Industry-wide EPDs represent the average impact of products, in our case, concrete mix designs, across the entire industry. The industry-wide EPD document contains many different mix designs because, we have many different embodied carbon impacts depending on the characteristics of the concrete mix. It's created from a broad industry survey, a sample size of about 500 plants. For perspective, we estimate the entire industry in the US at about 8,000. So that's a significant sample of the entire industry. In some cases, if a company has participated and contributed data toward the industry-wide EPD, they're able to use it in place of a product-specific EPD. This is mostly relevant to LEED, which I'll discuss in a moment. Finally, it serves as a point of comparison for product-specific EPDs. Like I said, we can't improve what we can't measure, and having only a single value, like I know the carbon impact of my concrete, doesn't tell you a lot when you don't know what it should be or what is typical, right? This is where that data comes from, of what is typical for the industry. So I said there are a lot of products. There are 72 sample products in the industry-wide EPD. The way this works is we have 9 different categories by compressive strength, which is the most important attribute when specifying concrete. 6 for normal weight aggregate and 3 for lightweight aggregate, because lightweight aggregate has additional emissions associated with its manufacturing. So this is broken up into categories of compressive strength from 2,500 all the way up to 8,000. 9 categories in total. Then in each of those 9 categories, there is a single sample product for each of 8 SCM ratios. What that means are supplementary cementitious material ratios. You can also think of these as cement replacement ratios. Cement supplies the vast majority of carbon emissions in concrete, comes from the manufacture of cement. It's around 85%. Cement can be replaced in certain proportions by materials like waste materials from other industries, like fly ash or slag, or a combination of both. So the general trend that we see here is that in terms of strength, the higher the strength, the more cement is required, which means the emissions tend to be greater. On the SCM ratios, within each strength category, the more cement that is replaced, the lower the carbon emissions tend to be, because you're reducing the greatest source of carbon emissions. So that's where those 72 products come from, 8 by 9. So how you would use the industry-wide EPD, first of all, a participating company can submit it mainly to LEED, but also to some private sector specifications. It depends how they're written. They all vary, in place of a product-specific EPD. However, we're increasingly seeing product-specific EPDs be asked for specifically by name. So if you're going to use this for comparison, to compare your product to see where should I be or what's expected, this is what you would do. You would find the matching compressive strength and cement replacement ratio of your product. So let's say you've got a 4,000 PSI mix with a 20% fly ash replacing your cement, which is a fairly common mix design. You would find that corresponding product in the industry-wide EPD by strength and cement replacement, and you would be able to look up what its GWP, remember that's global warming potential, that essentially means it's carbon, it's embodied carbon, right? It's carbon emissions. And you would find that that's 251.6 kilograms of CO2 per yard. If you have a product-specific EPD for your 4,000 PSI 20% fly ash mix, and it comes in around 220 kilograms of CO2 per yard, you would be able to quantify that you have, a 30 kilogram reduction from that, which is a little greater than 10%. It's maybe 12% in this case. So you would be able to quantify how well am I doing compared to the industry average. And that's really the biggest use case of the industry-wide EPD, so that a product-specific EPD can be put into context. Finally, on this, there is a companion document called the Regional Benchmark Report. What we do to create this is we take the same base of survey data from the industry-wide EPD and we break it up into multi-state regions. Concrete is an inherently local material. You can't ship it much more than 50 miles in a truck. And also there's a cost, both monetary and carbon, associated with trucking, constituent materials from a further distance, which means that we have to source our materials locally. And the materials are not all the same, and they're not all available everywhere, which means that there are going to be trends that lead to higher carbon emissions and lower carbon emissions in different areas of the country. And the purpose of the benchmark report is to quantify those. So what it does is it reports the same strength categories and reports the typical carbon emissions for each of those categories, but broken down by region. This is now being used by state and local policymakers to set benchmarks in their own carbon policies. which are being put into law, being put into public works specs, etc. So this is increasingly becoming a very important part of the equation on the industry-wide EPD. Okay, before I hand it off, I want to discuss how EPDs can be put to use in LEED. In combination, EPDs and HPDs can be used to achieve up to 4 points in LEED version 4.1, which is very significant, right? 4 points. The relevant credits each require multiple products to have those documents submitted. Now, this is a benefit to concrete because each concrete mix on a project, on a building project, it's not unusual to have 5, 6, or more concrete mixes used in different parts of that building. Each one is a distinct product. Each one will have a distinct EPD and a distinct HPD if you create it, meaning that they can be submitted and contribute a larger part of that LEED credit. What this does is it positions concrete to have a very large contribution to LEED and makes it the green building material of choice for LEED projects. The EPD credit in LEED has been around for a while in previous versions, unlike the HPD credit, which is new in version 4.1. Here's how the EPD credit works. There are 2 options, each worth 1 point. To comply with the first option, you only need to submit that you have an EPD. The results are not measured. It's used to, basically this credit exists to encourage the creation of EPDs. They're looking for 20 products from 5 manufacturers. If you're a participant in the industry-wide EPD, you can actually submit that for 1 product point each. But if you have product-specific EPDs, they're worth 1.5, which means that concrete can contribute a very large portion of those 20 products. The rest can be picked up. Finishes are very common to also be equipped with EPDs. Finally, option 2 can get you an additional point. This is looking for only 5 products from 3 different manufacturers. But you've got to have a product-specific EPD and be a participant in the industry-wide EPD. What the LEED evaluator will then do is find the carbon reduction from the benchmark, like I just described, for each product, and award a certain number of product points based on how much of a reduction you achieve. So this is how EPDs can be used to gain credits in LEED. And I'm going to pass this over to Cory White from HPD Collaborative now to explain HPDs. After that, I will circle back and explain how HPDs can also be used in LEED. Over to you, Cory.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. Let's get going. All right, so today we're going to be talking really about what Matt just talked about, but from HPDC's side. So to introduce myself a little bit, my name is Cory White. I'm the technical director at HPDC, and there my job really is I translate sort of complicated best practice, industry best practices, experts and manufacturers' experiences. I translate those so we can create really great technology tools to make the adoption of material transparency easy for manufacturers. So today I'm going to be talking just briefly about what an HPD is. We'll briefly talk about why there's no such thing as an industry-wide HPD, but how we came up with a solution for that, working with NRMCA and other trade associations to create example HPDs, describe how they work, and then I'll give it back over to Matt to talk about kind of how we partnered. So if people aren't familiar with an HPD is, the HPD is kind of what you see on the screen right here. It is a PDF type document that talks about transparency. And the HPD was created through what's called the HPD Open Standard. And the HPD Open Standard is important because it is an industry accepted method for reporting ingredients within a product. And that's important because before there wasn't necessarily something there in order to create sort of a tool or a product or an HPD, as you can see on the screen, to give to manufacturers and to provide a concrete way of providing this information. So before, there are many different formats, many different reporting mechanisms, and because there wasn't a standardized way, costs were higher, and really it became impossible to compare the different products as well within the different product categories. And just generally, it was really hard to find this information. So with the HPD open standard and creating the HPD, there was now a single standardized format that was widely accepted across the industry. And that allowed for project teams to accurately compare products to each other, and just the data quality just increased as well. And the data quality is specifically what we're going to be talking about a little bit today and why that's important in an HPD. Lastly, there came to be a one-stop shop. It's called the HPD Public Repository that houses all of the HPDs. So it's a one-stop shop project teams can go to find all of the HPDs they would need for a project. So how are HPDs created? So specifically, HPDs are created by taking manufacturer information that then is funneled through the HPD open standard, and then you get the PDF that you see on your screen with all of the hazard information. But what's nice is, and kind of what we pride ourselves on HPDC is we want to create tools to sort of create an easy button, right? An easy button for manufacturers to start the material health journey. So in the screen where you see the Health Product Declaration Open Standard, we've created a tool, the HPD Builder, that automatically helps manufacturers have the right information and follow this open standard to the T. And it's all automated, and it's a software tool that manufacturers can use to log their information, and it automatically creates a HPD that's compliant with the Health Product Declaration Open Standard. Right now we're in the version 2.3 of that standard. So why aren't there industry-wide HPDs then? Kind of like the industry-wide EPDs that Matt was talking about. That's because we require manufacturer-specific information. So specific information to the substance, material, or component that's supplied to the manufacturer that's contained within that product. So that's what's a little bit different. So in an HPD, HPDs don't use any industry-wide averages. They don't use any algorithms, approximations, or models. All of the information that's contained within HPD has to be manufacturer specific and has to be product specific. So think of the bill of materials level information for a product. And the reason why that's important is because to get to the future, we want to see circularity requires transparency. Matthew is referring to this as well. How will we ever know what's in a product, or how will we ever know how to optimize or innovate a product if we don't truly know, at a 1,000 parts per million or 100 parts per million level? How will we know how to optimize it if we don't actually know what's in the product in the first place? So that's where we have come to a head where we want to create an easy way of creating HPDs for manufacturers, and kind of an on-ramp to support an industry. And that's where the trade association example HPDs came into play, and that's where NRMCA volunteered to pave the way. We had other trade associations like the Natural Stone Trade Association and the Copper Alliance Trade Association that also supported this effort, but NRMCA really paved the way for everyone. So this is an important initiative to HPDC because first, we want to continue to increase the participation into material transparency across all industries. We really believe this is a great way to reduce friction to start participation. We also believe trade associations offer a multiplication type effect within an entire industry. Right? If we can help trade associations and teach them how to fish, how to create HPDs, then they can teach an entire industry how to fish. And with this type of involvement, we foresee not only the tier 1 suppliers participating, so that would be the trade association members, but also the tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers as well, which would be the suppliers to the trade association members. So we see a huge effort, a huge impact that can be made. Overall, what we see from manufacturers is there's an easy way to start their sustainability journey, an easy way to start material transparency with this initiative. There's additional marketing and visibility for manufacturers, for project teams that are specifically looking for HPDs. And then innovation, right? Once you can start understanding what's in your product, you can start making your products better, which is the end goal for anything HPDC does. Benefits to the trade associations, you get to have visibility with your customers, and your customers get the visibility within a rapidly growing green building industry. You become the subject matter experts. So I think this is a really, really important part where why we want to partner with more trade associations is because you become the subject matter expert for small businesses. A lot of times your members are small businesses with limited resources. All of a sudden they get a fantastic resource to help them with material transparency and other sustainability steps. This is the sort of partnerships we love to see. Lastly, it's a documented, tangible service for the customers to a trade association. So anytime we can provide anything tangible, it's always a win. So I always get asked this, so I wanted to include this in the presentation, is the cost. So to participate with HPDC, the trade association would need to be an affiliate member or a general member. And there are discounts for, if the trade association is a nonprofit. And the manufacturer, which would be the customer of the trade association, there's two different options as well. You can do a 5-pack token, which is equal to 5 HPDs, or do the affiliate membership as well. So overall, the cost to participate is pretty low. So let me describe briefly how this works. So first, it starts on the trade association side. So any manufacturer that's on this call or sees this and is going to be working with a trade association, just know that the trade association has done a lot of work on the back end to make it easy for you on the front end. So the first thing they're going to be doing is they're going to be registering as an ecosystem member. And then what we will do is we will set them up as a consultant role within the HPD builder. And what this does is they can then help create HPDs for you as the manufacturer. The trade association will then begin to create some of their example HPDs for their customers to reference. And what this really does is it reduces the friction to start, and there's just a lot of initial time investment to get the example HPDs created. And we believe that if a trade association does this, they can probably take care of about 75% of the information that would be needed for the manufacturer. So once the trade association develops a list of common example HPDs that can be made, they'll work with us to ensure that those example HPDs are created correctly. So the last thing we want to do at HPDC is give approval or free reign to create a bunch of example HPDs that are created wrong, and then all of a sudden the entire industry is has wrong HPDs. So what we're doing is we're making sure that we're approving all of these example HPDs. And once that's done, those example HPDs can then be put on websites. You saw NRMCA's website with the example HPDs, or other locations where your customers, the trade association's customers, can see that. And then you communicate the value of transparency after that, right? Maybe it's a lead capture system the trade association does to show the value that they can bring to their members. Step 2 would be the manufacturer. So overall, this is super easy to do for the manufacturer. You're going to sign up, take the manufacturer quick start training that's going to briefly describe what an HPD is and how to use it. You're going to download the HPD standard so you know what's going on and within the builder, what the builder is doing for you. And then you're going to learn options on how to access the HPD builder, which would be signing up for a membership. Once you're registered in there, you can verify your account, select your primary company, and then what we can do is we can start transitioning whatever example HPDs you need from your trade association. We can start funneling those into your account. And like I said, those example HPDs are about 75 to 80% of the way done already for you. Now all you need to do is enter your site-specific information, which is required to publish an HPD. So I just briefly will also want to touch the example HPD versus a published HPD. So an exampled HPD will have a notification on the header. So there will be a disclaimer saying that this is not an actual HPD. There will also be draft markings on the example HPD, where the published HPD won't have the header, they won't have any draft marks, and it will be located in the HPD public repository. These example HPDs will not be in the HPD public repository because they're not an official HPD yet, but they will be contained on the trade association's website or other media areas as well. So I just want to thank everyone for taking the time to listen to this. What I'm going to do now is push it back over to Matt. But if you have any questions on this, feel free to reach out to me. I know I briefly talked about this at a high level. If you want more details, myself and Mija can get on a call with you and we can figure out next steps. Thank you. Matt, over to you.
Thank you, Cory. So the first thing I want to address briefly is just the process of creating those HPDs and what NRMCA's role in it is. Cory mentioned that we are set up as a consultant role, trade associations will be, and that's really what our part in this is as a consultant to industry, both for NRMCA members and non-members looking to get HPDs. The difference with EPDs is while EPDs are published by us and kind of run through our site, HPDs are unified on hpdc.org. And the catalog. So we will act as a consultant for industry working on that catalog, and you can come to it, either way. If you go to HPDC first and start getting started on an HPD, they will pull us in to be your consultant. If you come to us, we will of course refer you to HPDC and stick with you through the process. So in the process of creating our example product HPDs, I want to briefly address what did we find as impacts. First of all of these were created to the 1,000 parts per million level of detail, which is 0.1% by volume on all those materials. And so each constituent material in concrete was broken down: aggregates, cement, admixtures, and water, which is just water. And so we were able to find what are the potential health risks in any of those. And the good news is what we found is there are very, very few. And this is a good thing because it allows HPDs to demonstrate that, concrete is a healthy material. It's healthy, it's safe to live and work in buildings made of concrete. HPDCs are how we prove it, right? To address a few of the risks that did come up, quartz occurs as an impurity or a residual in the limestone, which occurs in aggregate. Limestone also occurs, as the basis for cement, but in the transformation to clinker, you don't really get that limestone content. Limestone occurs at about 0.1 to 1% of that aggregate. It is a carcinogen if inhaled, but this isn't a risk to building residents with, finished concrete, which isn't full of dust. The one implication here is, of course, that it's important to do dust suppression at the site where you are, dealing with loose aggregate at the site of manufacturing. However, that's not really the target of an HPD. HPDs are targeting risks to, end users or residents in a building in this case. However, that is something good to keep in mind for our whole industry. Cement has only a few minor warnings, and then there are no warnings found for other materials like fly ash, slag, or aggregates. This is consistent across the entire range of 72 sample products. So I was curious to see, as we got into higher strengths where we use more cement and more coarse aggregate, if this would change, right, as we got to certain content coming above that 1,000 ppm level, but it did not, meaning that really it's demonstrating that HPDs are a good document to show the safety of concrete as a material to human health. I want to put one caveat on this, which is that we are a constantly evolving industry, and I don't think we've been evolving at a faster pace than we are right now. We are adopting new products, especially in the SCM, supplementary cementitious material arena, in order to reduce carbon emissions. As we adopt those new products, those come with new potential health risks, which means that there's all that much more importance on producing new HPDs when you create concrete with innovative products, so that we can keep track of any new risks which might be inherent in those materials, keep ourselves as an industry responsible and credible with what we report. So I just want to leave off with that it's not good enough to look at these and wash our hands, right? We do have to be producing those HPDs, working with HPD Collaborative, et cetera. And finally, I want to address how we can then leverage that. Once you've got those HPDs, we can get those additional 2 points in LEED, just like we can for EPDs. Unlike the LEED EPD credit, the material ingredients credit is new in version 4.1 as a pilot credit. We also expect it to be a full-blown credit in lead 5, which is moving along right now, actually, and we expect a public comment version of lead 5 to be available soon from what we've heard. So we expect it to be in there as well, but right now it's in 4.1 as a pilot. Like the EPD credit, it has 2 options worth 1 point each. Option 1, also like the EPD credit, is just looking for whether you have HPDs. They want to see 20 products from 5 different manufacturers, and remember that each concrete mix counts as 1 product. You receive 1 product point for just having an HPD, but if they are third-party verified, which is something that HPDC can help you with, and we will, of course, as well, they're worth 1.5, which makes concrete a bigger part of the equation in lead. Second option is looking for HPDs that are third-party verified and free of major hazards. They are looking for 5 different products from 3 different manufacturers. HPDcollaborative.org actually has a really good info page about how to get the HPD lead credit, both of these points. So I would see that for more info if you're curious about this specific aspect of it. With that, I have no more material, so I can take some questions as well. Here you can see my contact information, my LinkedIn, and then a few key web pages. Build with Strength is kind of the home for many of our sustainability programs, and then our EPD program page and our HPD program page. Yeah, so I'm able to take questions as well.
Well, thank you, Matthew and Cory. I thought that was a extremely well integrated presentation, and I particularly liked how you wrap things up, Matthew, about how as the industry is looking for new materials for SEM, that you do have to stay on top of understanding the relative health and hazard impacts of those new materials. And in fact, there have been a number of questions that have come in for you, one pertaining to that, which is, do you foresee fly ash fading out as coal power plants are being shut down? Can we have shortage of SCM? Any research done to find other SCM?
Yeah, I have an answer for that. The answer is yes and no. Fresh fly ash is running out already because of the closure of coal-fired plants, which ultimately, if we're concerned with carbon emissions, is a good thing, right? Coal-fired power plants, huge source of emissions. Even though we reuse their waste product to lower our emissions, right? On the grand scale of things, we are moving toward more renewables. Bit of a tough spot for concrete. The response, I think, from the industry has actually been primarily to do what's called remediated fly ash, which is if a coal-fired power plant can't sell their fly ash to a concrete plant, which is kind of the #1 disposal source for fly ash, they have to landfill it. That landfilled fly ash, of course, is exposed to water in the ground and other materials, so it's not up to spec to be used in concrete. We've seen a number of businesses which are focused on digging up that fly ash and essentially cleaning it, drying it, bringing it back up to spec, and then being able to use it in concrete. There are, of course, more emissions associated with this, right? Because there's energy in that process. However, still significantly less than alternatives, like cement. So that's one answer, and I think that's the one that's going to bridge the gap in the next 5 to 10 years. And then alternative products, there are alternative products being tested and explored all the time. I think natural pozzolans, which are, pozzolanic properties are a component of what makes them work as binder, right, like cement. And there are natural minerals which have these properties as well, which can be excavated sometimes in the same general area as we excavate limestone for cement or, other materials, limestone and granite for aggregates. So
Matt,
natural resources are another source.
There are a few more questions. I just wanted to ask you to wrap up this answer.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that was really my answer, is that we're going to be looking at natural minerals.
All right. Thank you for that. I mean, that's a fascinating topic of what are these new materials that are getting developed and looked at, and that's a whole other webinar.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I think this is a question that kind of everybody has in the back of their mind, which is, everyone understands the demand for concrete EPDs. And here's the question: who are the primary users of HPDs? Is the government and other Organizations are requiring EPDs, but who uses HPDs or requires them? Maybe that's a Cory question.
I think I would kick that to Cory.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have any specific answers to the concrete?
Oh, to users of concrete HPDs in particular?
Yeah.
I mean, we really are aiming these right now at green building program recognition, which is usually organized by either the GC or the owner. So really right now, I think it's primarily private sector as opposed to EPDs, which we're seeing most of the demand come from the public sector now.
Yeah.
Part of it is though, in creating them, we want them to get more usage and we'll let that happen where it happens.
Right. And let me point out that, and just starting to wrap things up, when a manufacturer publishes either an EPD or an HPD for the first time, our data team will use it to create a free listing in the transparency catalog for that manufacturer. So we're in the process now of, I'm not sure we have everybody yet, but all of the participants in the NRMCA industry-wide EPD will get free listings in the catalog so that when people look for concrete producers, they'll find those participants, and then we'll be able to find the industry average EPD and the benchmark report, which can be used, for their EPD. As manufacturers publish HPDs, we'll do the same thing. If they haven't published an EPD, we'll create the listing with the HPD. Or if they already have EPDs and they publish HPDs, we'll add the HPDs to the listing as well. And what I can tell you from the data of the transparency catalog, people prefer products that have both an EPD and a material ingredient disclosure, largely because together those disclosures really give a 360 view of the environmental impact and the material health potential risks and hazards. And they can feel confident about that product that they're selecting. One last question I can answer quickly, and then we'll say our good afternoons. Someone did catch on that there are two EPD generator tools and has enough insight into the industry to know that sometimes there can be variability in results. But what I've been told is that their results have been tested comparatively and they are fundamentally the same. So they would not be recommending, NRMCA would not be recommending one over the other. And so I think people can feel confident that either is a good choice.
That's right. And we anticipate there to be more tools on the market soon as well. Those tools actually have gone through a verification process that NRMCA oversaw. And what we did was we used the data from our industry-wide EPD to compare them against each other and found a sub 1% variance. And we intend to do that not only with each new tool that comes onto the market, but also with each new version of the underlying standard, the PCR for concrete, to retest and make sure that they are producing consistent results up to that standard.
So we're at our time, and I want to thank everyone for attending. Thank you, Cory and Matthew, for the time and effort you put into putting this presentation together. There are a few more questions that, Matthew, I will send over to you so you can respond appropriately. And again, thanks everyone for coming, and have a great day.